Hi, I'm Jim McCann, founder of 1-800-Flowers. We created this podcast to share the wonderful people we get to interact with, we get to meet, we get to know, and most importantly, get to learn from. So I invite you to join us on this journey here on the Celebrations Chatter podcast. Welcome to today's special episode of Celebrations Chatter. I'm joined by a few close friends to talk about a topic that's close to our hearts. I'm really excited about today's episode because it's all about being a grandparent. And we're going to share the joys and the significance of being grandparents. Becoming a grandparent is a milestone that brings with it an outpouring of love and all different kinds of emotions and opportunities to shape the lives of those little rascals that are our grandkids. It's a role that comes with great responsibility, though, and even greater rewards. You know, the bond between a grandparent and a grandchild can be very special. And that's all we work toward, is having those very special relationships. Just this past weekend, I was looking at my oldest grandchild. We have lucky enough to have 7. The oldest is 15. Her name is Abigail, going on 16. And in the car on the way home, I said to my wife, well, I was looking at her to see this wonderful young lady she's grown into. And I was struck by, a real visceral memory of holding her in my lap the very first time, this little tiny peanut. And I'm sitting there saying, where did those years go? But I'm very lucky because we have 3 kids, 7 grandkids. They each married well. And I'm proud to tell you that all are very good parents, frankly, much better than I was. So let's dive into our discussion, sharing stories and insights on how this special relationship shapes us, hopefully our grandchildren, and the unbreakable bond we cherish. Welcome to our Grandparent Circle, where every laugh and every hug is a testament to the timeless love we get to share. Looking across my screen, we have Dick Auletta, a good friend and a famed communications expert. And then Dr. George Everly, who's an expert in a bunch of things, and my collaborator on our new book, which is called Lodestar, which we'll be publishing in the fall. And Larry Zarrin is on the board of 1-800-Flowers, lives in St. Louis, and another communications expert. Dick, you had a wonderful experience last summer with your granddaughter. Why don't you share that with us?
My daughter called me one day early in the year and said, you may be hearing from a TV game show I put your name in, and it was a show called Generation Gap. Kelly Ripa hosted it. It was a summer replacement the year before, which was very effective. A number of friends, including friends in a group that Jim and I belong to, told me, you're out of your goddamn mind. You're embarrassed. Because what they do is ask questions about my granddaughter's generation of me and vice versa, and you're competing with another grandchild. My reaction to it was, when I was 20, I said, take your clothes off, I'll be back in the room. I leaned against the door so nobody would come in. At 50, I realized I could leave the door open because I wouldn't be embarrassed. Whoever walked in would be embarrassed. At 85, there was no way anything was embarrassed. We wound up qualifying for the show. My sense was that it was an incredible gift that I was giving to my granddaughter, who 20 years from now could tell her children about it. Turned out to be a remarkable gift for me. I watched my granddaughter blossom like a rose. She was 12 years old, and she nailed it. And she bailed my chestnuts out of the fire more than once, and we won. We won on the last question, which I got. It was a comparison of a beautiful young woman who you had to come up with the name that was involved with the 2 pictures on the screen. Beautiful young woman. I assumed she was a singer. I had no idea. And a duck with a bow around her neck. And I leaned over to my granddaughter and said, it's Daisy. Because I knew it had to be Daisy Duck. And that won us.
That's fantastic.
I'll just tell you a quick story. The primary prize after we won $18,000 was you picked a young child, 4 to 5 years old, that you knew who would, with Kelly Ripa, pick a prize, which was either a car or an electric drum set. I told my daughter to tell her mom that if she didn't pick the car, I'm from Brooklyn, I'd break her kneecaps. My daughter didn't think that was funny. Anyway, she picked the car. So the lawyers came in after the show and said, we can't split a car, we'll give you the cash value. So we wound up winning $54,000.
Wow.
But it was just a gift, and the gift was compounded by friends I had not talked, or people I had not talked to for years who happened to watch the show and reached out to me. And the gift was further compounded by the dozens of people that I had let know we were going to be on, who shared an experience, the depth of which was remarkable.
George, you just had an encounter with some grandkids too. I think it was over Father's Day weekend. They came in from California, and you were beaming, telling me about those hours you had together.
Yeah, so my daughter came in from California for my birthday, which was the end of May, but all the rest of the kids came, and 4 grandkids, and it's almost an existential moment to look and say, and I don't mean this in a narcissistic sense, but here's my legacy, or the family legacy unfolding, and my son said, you'll be getting a belated birthday present. And he said, selfishly, it's something that I will enjoy, but I think you will enjoy it too. So I'm waiting with bated breath. And so on Father's Day, a few days prior to Father's Day, this box arrives, and it's from Amazon or something. And my wife says, are you going to undo it? I said, absolutely not. That's up to him I don't know what it is. It says partial assembly. I don't do assembly. So that's going to fall in his lap. So it turns out it's a pop-up soccer goal. And I played soccer. My son played soccer. And now my 2 grandsons are playing, the 2 oldest grandsons are playing soccer. So this past Father's Day, we had, and even this last weekend, we had a marvelous time of 3 generations playing soccer together.
That's
and
great.
it was one of those pause and just appreciate the moment idea that I'm a junior, my son is a 3rd, and my grandson is a 4th.
Well, when you come from royalty, that's got to be the case.
When you come from royalty, it works. When you don't come from royalty, it's a little weird. But anyway, and my wife said, there were 3 Georges, 3 generations of George playing soccer together. And so it was my son and I against my two oldest grandsons. And it was just so much fun. And I thought to myself, this is amazing, this opportunity. And it's those kinds of things that again, it's about finding traditions. Many, 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 many years ago, when I was about
finding or making them, creating them.
Thank you. Many years ago, when I was about to become a father for the first time, I started reading on what made families functional, happy, etc. And I stumbled upon this source that said family traditions are the glue that holds families together for years, decades, and even generations. And I've taken that to heart. So we have our little family traditions, and we've been doing it now for over 30 years. And one of the things that one of my kids said to me is, we so much look forward to the family traditions.
What are they, George?
And they're a little silly. We go out to dinner Christmas Eve. We certainly share Christmas together, but we go out to, the tradition is going out to dinner Christmas Eve. We take a summer vacation. All of us try to go someplace, a destination vacation. We try to share Easter together, and we go to pretty much the same place every Easter. So again, it's 3 or 4 things throughout the year, and we certainly try to have Thanksgiving together. But in addition to the standard holidays, we do these little things. And one of them is coming up, 4th of July. We go to the same place every year to watch the fireworks. And it's that glue that, even though, I guess to your point, that it was on a smaller scale, even though I will not have seen, for example, my daughter for months, these traditions, these rituals bring us together. And it's like we haven't been apart all that long. And we actually have something to look forward to.
And it brings you right back. It hits the reset button on a relationship.
It does.
Time between contact evaporates. You just reminded me, we have a very silly one in my family. My mom is gone now 30 years. And while she was alive, so call it 35, 40 years ago, it was back in the 70s when you used to give a peace sign. And we were leaving the house. My mother would always come to the door to say goodbye. And, you couldn't leave unless she walked you out. And one day she tried to give us the peace sign, kidding around, and wasn't sure if she wanted to give you the right on sign or the peace sign. So she gave us like 2 fingers in a hook. And we were hysterical that she got these 2 mixed up. But I'm going to tell you, our kids don't come to the house. We don't leave one another's houses without us all going out saying goodbye, and we all give the sign. Now, this is 3 generations. My grandchildren are doing this now. They don't know why, but they know it's our thing. They belong to something bigger. And yes. I know, Larry, you had a joyous moment you shared with me last week about taking your granddaughter to the park and how thrilled you were to see her interact with other kids and not know what to do, and all of a sudden make another friend and just reach over and grab her hand.
Yeah. My grandson. It's I've never heard anybody clearly articulate how much pleasure we get from watching our children make friends. Like, it seems to be an understudied phenomenon. The joy when, you bring them to the playground and you're engaging them and you got them on the monkey bars and you got them, and then all of a sudden they find this little buddy to run with. It brings tremendous joy.
Dick, you make it a point. You mentioned the TV show with your granddaughter, Harper. How old was she when you did the show?
She was 12. She was 12 going on 20. and it started, the first question was you had to come up with a name that was involved. And the first question was, and there was a picture of a baseball player with the number 24 on its back. And he was well known for the most famous catch in World Series history. And he's considered one of the greatest baseball players of all time. This is year before his death. And they asked it of my granddaughter. And I said, oh, shit. She got it. She said, Maze. I said, how'd you know? She said, I don't know. But the feeling that I had of watching this on television was terrific.
Justin Batt, we're getting to speak today. We run this event up until COVID. It was an annual event. So this was our first time to have the Women in Worth event back in person. And we had a collection of some of the most dynamic women. A big thrill for me, Justin, as a dad, husband, and granddad, is that I had my wife there, my eldest of my 3 children, Erin, my daughter, my oldest granddaughter, Abby, who's 14 years old. I was just getting to the subject of your book. It was a pinch me day for this dad and granddad to have my daughter and my granddaughter there and to be able to point them out. And I know you're going to be shocked to hear this, but women are sometimes more emotive and connective than men. I know you're shocked. But to see a couple of hundred women, I'd say 40 or 50 of them went out of their way to go say hello to my granddaughter, Abby, who's sat in the back of the room at one of the back tables. And it just, as a granddad, I couldn't have been happier or prouder of this community that you talk about and how they went out. And she told me it was the best non-family day of her life. And she's an accomplished equestrian, so she's achieved some really great recognition and awards there. But it just was a terrific day for this granddad. And that was the word she used on the way home that night, saying, boy, that really is a community of people, and the way they encourage one another. And to your point, the stories that are unlocked that really could and should be told.
I love that. And I think there's so many themes from Daddy's Saturday that parallel what you just described. And a couple that just come to mind briefly are, one, that so often if you're winning at work, but you're not winning at home, then you're not winning. And we often leave the best parts of work at the office and we don't bring it home. We bring the worst parts of work into the home. And, especially now that a lot of people are working from home, like I do, working remotely, it's hard to really create that separation. You really can't, shut your car door and turn it off anymore, because now you're walking out of a bedroom or an office right into the mix of the family. And one of the things that I found is that, if you're being intentional with the way that you bring goal setting, mission, vision, values, culture, all those things from the workplace have a very strong purpose in the home. And also, why are we not encouraging our kids to follow in our footsteps and not just be consumers, but also be creators and to become entrepreneurs and, to do what they're passionate about? It sounds like your granddaughter, right, is an accomplished equestrian, and that's incredible at 14 years old. That's going to set her up for the rest of her life. The values, the discipline, right, that she's learning are so important. And my daughter's 15. And she has her own business. It's called Cowgirl Social. It's an e-commerce business, and she sells country western themed clothing and social items, party dresses, things of that nature for young girls. And her whole premise is she wants to help young women identify their worth. I love the day, as you described, that one event, by being intentional, bringing your wife, your daughter, and your granddaughter to that. Right, you got all three of them involved. But for that granddaughter especially, I love that because it was an intentional day, and look at the memories that were made. So
not only did I have three generations, but later in the day, my brother Chris's oldest child, Jenna, his daughter came and joined us too. So it was a real McCann family event. It was just a great day for me and our family. You mentioned the cowgirl culture. I don't think we hear that much about it. We hear about the cowboy code, cowboy culture, living the cowboy life. You're based there in Nashville, so you're at the center of that cowboy culture. Tell us a little bit about how your 15-year-old daughter, what's her name?
Her name's Hayden Olivia.
What does she think? How would she describe the cowgirl culture?
We decided to move to Nashville right during COVID to raise our kids in a different way, to have some space. And so we moved out to this area south of Nashville. We have land, we've got a farm. And so she had to shift. Yeah, we've got 15 at this point, Highland cows. And so we traded the beach for the farm. And so she's embraced that lifestyle. And while today, many times I don't necessarily see it in our home, I see it when they're out in public. I see it when they're school or sports or other things. You can just tell there's a difference there, especially in their resiliency and the way that they just have this toughness. And I guess it's being farm tough. They've got that, and it's built in, and I think it's going to serve them well in adulthood.
Watching my granddaughter with the horses, grooming them, cleaning up, nothing keeps you more grounded than shoveling poop.
It's true.
Yeah, it's amazing to see the other kids around horses when we go to see. Sunday morning, there was an event my granddaughter rode in, and we went to it. It was a pouring rain Sunday morning, but I go in that barn to see this little girl with this big animal and the intricacies of what they're doing and the respect they have for animals and caring for them. It just helps them develop. I kid my daughter and her husband and my grandkids about that, because I tell them that, growing up, we had horses too. Now, I grew up in South Queens in a not glamorous neighborhood, and they look at me and said, "You had horses?" They know where I grew up. And I said, "Yes, but we had to go through the hole in the fence at Aqueduct to go play with them." But
Hi, I'm Jim McCann.
And I'm George Everly Jr.
During the COVID-19 epidemic, I stumbled upon an article that Dr. George wrote, which had a real strong impact on me in terms of how COVID was and was likely to impact our social connections, our relationships. And it really, really resonated with me. So I reached out to George, basically wrote him a fan letter, and that began our relationship.
We found a mutual interest in helping people become their best selves, especially in times of adversity.
Together, we embarked on a quest to co-write Lodestar. That journey began with countless hours of researching the most impactful self-help books out there.
Once we had our picks, we combined the science with the practical.
The result of our journey, the creation of a one-stop shop for the best of the best in self-help.
We decided to write this book to help others go from where they are to where they want to be and be the best possible selves they could be.
So if you're looking to boost your career, build stronger relationships, or simply become the best version of yourself, Lodestar is here to guide you on your path. It's so easy to talk to you. We're so proud to be associated with you, Geoffrey. When I've seen all the things that you've done over the years, your emphasis around family, around the table, around communal doing things. I'm the oldest of 5 children. I have 3 myself, and more importantly, 7 grandkids. And we have a beach house out east on Long Island. And the best investment I've made, no surprise to you, I'm sure, is a couple of years ago, we got a pizza oven for outside by our barbecue. And it becomes a competition, right? All the grandkids get involved, everyone's making their pizza, but they're not just outside in the pool while the adults are inside anymore. They're in the kitchen and they're putting their toppings on the pizza. And of course, it becomes a contest, right?
Of course.
Papa, whose did you like better? Did you like mine better?
Exactly.
And they put little jars, you can vote which one was better. But it is such a wonderful thing to have a 7-year-old standing next to a 12-year-old doing their dicing. Am I doing this right? And the older one telling them, oh no, you sprinkle it a little thinner. It's the idea of being in the kitchen, around the stove, around the barbecue, everybody helping out. It just creates such a great sense of family.
Well, I think that, when you asked me, you mentioned I started in France and Europe. What I discovered in Europe is what I continually keep discovering every day. Life is really around the table. And I discovered that when I was 21 in Europe traveling. And I discovered that the hospitality that I saw in Europe, in France particularly, which is a 3,000-year-old country, was that the culture was benefited, and the culture and the buildings and the history has benefited from that socio-economic family tie of eating around the table.
I'm here today with Oscar Munoz. Oscar is a terrific fellow and has a great story. And I'd love to hear about the earliest influences in your life. And I think you talk a great deal about your grandmother and the role that she played. And one of the important events in our lives here around Flowers is Grandparents' Day. So we'd love to hear about your earliest years and in particular that relationship you had with your grandmother.
Yeah, it was my maternal grandmother. And as I share in the book, which I hadn't shared with anyone up until that time, was the fact that I was born to a single mother. And she subsequently left after a year or so from Mexico to come to Los Angeles, where her older brother was there and had arranged all her paperwork. And so she went up there to try to make a living and left me with my grandmother for probably 7.5 years, where I grew up. My grandmother was such an influence and has provided these latent and dormant values in me that, only later in life do you really, truly recognize. She was an incredibly hardworking woman, of course, as most people are, but her character and her approach to humans was, to this very day, I can just remember, even in those early formative years, how she interacted, she wasn't a learned person of any sort. She didn't have a job or a home. And so we traveled all over kind of northern Mexico with family and friends. And one of the things I talk about is this concept of in the Latino heritage, the concept of familia, family. And the one thing that you really quickly realize in our sort of heritage is that you don't need homes, you don't need anything. There's always someone there with their arms open, and we took full advantage of that for the year. So we wandered around in different places with different family members for so many years. Importantly, everywhere we went, every location we stopped in, every interaction we had with a family or friends that we were at, she was always so bright and cheery and joyful and sweet and giving of those things, to the point where that's what those are the dormant values that came into me. And only, again, as I said earlier, till later, when I had faced issues and had to make tough decisions about certain things, that those values come up. And it's very much led my leadership style, which is one of outreach, of bridging gaps, of like something I call listen and learn. All of those came directly from her.
It sounds to me like when you had those difficult decisions to make, that you'd find yourself grasping at those values that you learned at an early life, even though you didn't know you were learning them.
Yeah, no, that's the wonderful thing about these latent and dormant things, right? That you don't know you have them until you need them. But
Until
she
you
was
tested.
until you tested, and she was an incredible woman. I mean, to the postscript on that, she retired when she was 86 years old, and she ended up as a maid at the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas. And the story I love to tell, and I was just there making a speech at an event, in the Flamingo Hotel basement where the employees work and have their holding area, there's a wall, a hall of fame for employees, and she's on it. And it's just this wonderful thing where my families, my kids, every time it goes, we have access to that section. And that's the kind of person she was. And on her retirement day, they called, so one of her friends called and said, "Hey, would you mind coming?" And I said, "Sure, of course I'd love to." I'm expecting, 3 or 4 ladies that are going to have a little dinner or something. Well, I show up and, they had an overflowing, ballroom. And what I most vividly remember, 2 things. One, the suits were there. So it wasn't the little ladies that she played around the gun. I mean, people in suits were there, which is the senior management. And then, of course, the second thing was the stories you often hear about someone that you're just not aware. And no, thankfully, it wasn't posthumously, but just stories of caring. And then to add a further postscript, shortly after she retired, as we began to take care of her, she had an arthritic condition, probably the doctor said over a course of a decade, that had grown so badly that had almost fused her ankle, bone, and leg, to the point where, as the doctor would say, the pain level when they ask you 1 to 10 is a 20. And she worked for a many amount of years with that, never complained, never missed a day of work. And so it is that backdrop of a woman like that who, in my toughest moments, and we all have them, right? You reflect on that, and you know that my worst day at work is probably a good day for her, what she was doing every day. So it's a really wonderful story, and it's a meaningful one to me. And the fact that it has that Hispanic Latin sort of backdrop on familia, I think, is also an important message for this world that we live that's divided. This whole DEI is such a term. Everyone's a human, and everyone has amazing values. And for us to be able to open our aperture and understand a human like her, because if you saw her in the street, you wouldn't think anything of her. Right? She was just a simple woman, but yet she, in effect, inspired me to do the things that I've been able to do. And that's the story of being open and inclusive, as opposed to, the rules and all the things that we're doing now that sometimes aren't always meaningful or actionable, and they're more for optics. There's a real human value to being inclusive. And again, that's not a political statement. It's not an immigrant statement. It's just a statement that is just true.
Go to 1-800-Flowers.com. Find the perfect gift.
And wow the people you love.
Wow. This is amazing. Whether you want to say happy birthday. So cute.
Or I love you.
I love you too. Thinking of you.
Wow.
Go to 1-800-Flowers.com. Celebrate the people you love.
Well, I hope you enjoyed what you heard, and I know I'll be sharing it forward. I hope you get to as well. Let's keep the conversation going. Follow me along on Twitter at Jim 1-800-Flowers and on LinkedIn at Jim McCann. Hope to talk to you soon.